Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into, well, a really remarkable moment in philosophical and spiritual history. Our sources call it the Varanasi Victory.
That's right.
And it's not just about, winning some debate. It feels more like a case study.
Absolutely. It's strategy, it's persuasion, and it's about how powerful a personal example can be, especially in shifting a whole intellectual community.
And then the setting is key, right, in the Varanasi.
Oh, absolutely crucial. Varanasi, Kashi. It wasn't just any holy city. The texts are very specific. It was the epicenter of Māyāvāda philosophy.
The impersonal school of thought.
Exactly. Where the goal is basically merging into this undifferentiated oneness, the impersonal Brahman.
Okay.
Now, Lord Chaitanya's whole mission, his goal was to start this inundation of love of Godhead. But you have this established, very learned community there.
And they weren't buying it.
They were actively fleeing it, as the source says. They avoided that whole idea of personal devotion. So what we're looking at is how this, divine strategy just completely flipped the script in their main stronghold.
Right. It sets up this massive intellectual clash. You've got logic and impersonal ideas on one side, and ecstatic devotion chanting on the other. So let's look at the opposition first. Before the victory happened, these Māyāvādī sannyāsīs, the intellectual heavyweights, they were pretty critical.
Oh, intensely critical. And their complaints were, they stemmed directly from how they define life as a sannyāsi, a renunciate.
How so?
Two main things. First, they just dismissed Lord Chaitanya, called him an illiterate sannyāsi.
Which wasn't literally true. He could read.
No, not literally. It meant he wasn't doing what they thought a sannyasi should do, which was, constant, rigorous, deep study of the Vedānta Sutra. That was the core text for them.
So if you weren't head down in the books constantly, you were considered, uneducated in their eyes.
Pretty much. And the second thing, they were genuinely offended by his practices.
The public chanting and dancing. The Sankirtana.
Exactly. They saw it as just emotion, sentimentality, maybe okay for regular folks, but definitely beneath the dignity of a proper sannyasi. For them, his job should have been quiet study, austere meditation, not, public displays of ecstasy.
Because so that's a huge strategic problem then, if you want to reach these intellectuals, but they basically write you off before you even start.
You can't engage. They won't even listen.
Right. And this is where the sources highlight the strategy kicking in. The Lord deciding to take sannyāsa himself, adopting their monastic order. The texts call it a premeditated device, even a trick, a chaturi. How does that square with divinity, this idea of a trick?
Well, the way it's explained, it's not about deception for deception's sake. It's framed as a necessary tactical move, just to get engagement.
Because the sannyāsa order itself commanded respect there.
And universal respect in Varanasi.
Yeah.
So by taking that order, he kind of used their own system. It forced them, compelled them to engage with him formally.
So it shifted things from them just dismissing him as an outsider?
Yeah, right, to having to face him as a theological peer, at least nominally. The sources suggest if he hadn't done that, they would have just kept ignoring this whole inundation idea.
So it was the way in.
It was the way in. The first step in this plan to, as the text puts it, devise a trick to drown them also in that very love of God they were trying to avoid.
The ultimate infiltration indeed. Okay, so the stage is set, and the actual debate happens when he accepts an invitation, right? To have lunch with them.
Yes, finally. They're face to face.
How did that crucial meeting actually play out?
Well, his opening tactic was, frankly, brilliant rhetoric. He didn't just jump in with, heavy philosophy. No,
Right.
He started with deep humility, presented himself as a fool, said he couldn't really grasp the subtleties of Vedanta study.
Wait, presenting himself as a fool, wouldn't that just confirm their biases?
Yeah.
Let them dismiss him right there.
But see, that was the clever part. He framed it as instruction from his spiritual master. He claimed his guru told him that in this specific age, the age of Kali, all that complex intellectual stuff, it's just not effective anymore. It's too difficult for people.
So he shifted the focus from his own ability.
Exactly. To the practical needs of the current era. He then argued that chanting the holy names was the only practical way for everyone, whether you're an intellectual giant or not.
So that forced their hand. They couldn't just attack him personally anymore.
Right. They had to defend their whole approach, deep study against the claimed effectiveness of the holy name for this age. It completely disarmed that illiterate sannyāsiya critique.
Clever. So once he had them engaged, He went for the philosophical core, didn't he? This whole issue of interpretation, hermeneutics.
Precisely. It came down to how you read the scriptures.
Yeah.
The Māyāvādīs, they relied heavily on gāvavoti.
Yeah.
Indirect meaning, figurative interpretation. Basically reading between the lines, sometimes quite creatively, to make the texts support their idea of oneness, that we're all ultimately identical with God.
So how did Lord Chaitanya tackle that? It sounds complex.
He countered with simplicity and authority. He argued that the Vedas, the scriptures, are the direct words of the Supreme, self-evident.
Okay.
Therefore, you have to understand them by their muhyaviki.
The direct meaning.
The direct, literal, plain sense. His analogy would be like reading someone's last will. You take the words literally, right? You don't start imposing elaborate figurative meanings unless the literal sense is just impossible.
Right. You assume the author meant what they said.
Exactly. He argued the Vedas are clear. They speak directly about a supreme person, about our relationship with him, about love.
So he was essentially accusing them of twisting the texts, using imaginative commentary to force a conclusion that wasn't actually there in the plain reading.
That's precisely the point he made. He stated that Shankaracharya, the founder of their school, and his followers used word jugglery, imaginative interpretation, specifically because they wanted to establish monism, the idea of oneness. It wasn't the direct message.
Okay, so if we stick with this direct meaning, Mukyavati, what was the clear, direct understanding of Vedānta that Lord Chaitanya presented? He used 3 principles, right?
Yes, and this brought incredible clarity. He laid it out systematically, which the impersonal view often lacked. First, samadenda.
Relationship.
Establishing the proper relationship. Who is God? Who are we? How are we connected? Foundational stuff.
Okay.
Second, avateya. That's the process to realize that relationship, which he identified as devotional service, bhakti.
The practice.
The practice. And third, prayojana. The ultimate goal you're aiming for. And for him, that wasn't just liberation, it was pramila.
Pure love of God.
Pure, active, loving relationship with God.
And why was structuring it that way, relationship, process, goal, so effective against their view?
Because the Māyāvādī goal, mukha, impersonal liberation, just merging it, kind of skips over the first 2, doesn't it? It minimizes the ongoing relationship, sambandha, and the active process.
Right. It focuses only on the endpoint of dissolution.
Exactly. By laying out these 3 clear, interconnected principles based on the direct meaning, Lord Chaitanya showed that the whole point of Vedānta isn't just to disappear into oneness, but to achieve this eternal, loving connection.
So the logical foundation of their argument was basically pulled out from under them.
Completely dismantled.
How fast did that logical defeat turn into, actual belief?
Oh, a change of heart.
According to the sources.
What?
Instantly. It was described as a complete turnaround.
Really?
Yes. Defeated by the clarity and logic of the direct meaning, the sannyāsīs fully acknowledged him, not just as a great scholar, but as the embodiment of Vedic knowledge itself, even as Narayan, as God himself.
Wow.
They apologized, humbly begged pardon for criticizing him and the chanting movement before. And crucially, they admitted personally that Shankaracharya's commentary relied on word jugglery.
That's a huge admission from followers of that school.
Massive. And then came the action that really showed the change.
What was that? They immediately started chanting, Krishna, Krishna, constantly. And then, the source makes a point of noting, the Lord and all these sannyāsīs took their meal together.
Which was symbolic?
Deeply symbolic back then. Sharing a meal signified acceptance, purification. It basically showed these former critics were now cleansed, accepted as devotees.
That's incredible. And for his close followers, people like Chandrashekara, Tapana Mishra, Sanātana Goswami, they must have been watching this, having heard all the earlier criticism.
Oh, the texts say they were extremely pleased. You can imagine the relief, the vindication. All the pain they felt hearing the blasphemy was just reversed. It confirmed the victory wasn't just intellectual, it was deep, it was spiritual.
Okay, so the top leadership in Varanasi is converted. But the sources talk about an inundation across the whole city. How did it spread beyond this group of scholars?
Well, the conversion of the leaders was the key. That gave credibility.
Ah, the domino effect.
Exactly. First, these leading sannyāsas themselves came to see him regularly, but then his fame just exploded beyond those circles. The texts say the entire city praised him. It went from scorn to widespread veneration.
And this ties back to that theological point you made earlier.
Right. It shows how establishing the correct philosophy, the Siddhanta, often has to come first. Once people understood the philosophical basis was sound, then the devotional feeling, the bhava, could really awaken on a mass scale.
And the scale of this awakening. The sources use some pretty vivid language about the crowds, don't they?
Astonishing language. It suggests a huge shift in the city's mood. At his residence, the crowd was apparently hundreds of thousands. The text uses the term laka laka loka.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. And whenever he went to the Ganges to bathe, just massive crowds gathered just to catch a glimpse of him. The city was physically packed with people drawn to him.
So how did he handle that? That sounds like potential chaos. Was it just like a king moving through?
No, not at all. He managed it using the very thing they used to criticize.
The chanting.
The chanting. To manage the crowds, but more importantly, to actually deliver them spiritually, he would stand up, raise his hands high, and just chant loudly, Hari, Hari!
And the effect.
The vibration itself was described as filling the land and sky, and the people, now completely won over, they just responded, thousands chanting back. It was the public proof of the inundation. He was delivering the city through Sankirtana.
Which brings us to that final, very powerful demonstration, text 157, when he goes publicly to the Vishveshvara Temple, Lord Shiva's temple. Why was that specific act so important in a city that had been dominated by the Māyāvādī view?
Because it was the perfect physical refutation of their core idea that all the demigods, like Shiva and the Supreme Lord, are ultimately the same, just different faces of the impersonal Brahman.
How did the visit refute that?
By showing proper Vaishnava etiquette, it demonstrated respect, but also hierarchy.
Okay, explain that difference. Respect versus equality.
A Vaishnava, a devotee of Vishnu or Krishna, is taught to give proper respect to all. The source even says, respect an ant. So, of course, you honor great personalities, great servants of God like Lord Shiva, who is immensely powerful and considered the greatest devotee.
Okay.
But you never accept a demigod as being equal to, or God forbid, above the Supreme Lord. That's the absolute line. The foundational principle is crystal clear. Ekali Vada Krishna, Arda Sabha Futya.
Which means?
Only Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all others are his servants.
And to make that hierarchy really clear, the source points to the Brahma Samhita, giving examples of how these powerful fathers relate to Govinda Krishna.
Yes, it lays out their specific functions as authorized deputies, essentially. Shiva, or Shambhu, is described as a specific transformation of the Lord's power for the purpose of destruction, like milk turning into yogurt, related but distinct.
Okay.
Durga, who manages the material energy, acts entirely according to Govinda's will. Brahma, the engineer of the universe, gets his creative power from Govinda. Even Ganesha, who removes obstacles, gets his power by holding Govinda's lotus feet. And the sun god makes his daily journey only because Govinda orders it.
So every major cosmic player is shown to be powerful, yes, but subordinate. A servant.
Exactly. Powerful, worshipable in their own right as great servants, but not the Supreme Source himself. That temple visit visually demonstrated the difference between respecting the servant and worshiping the master.
It really does seal the whole argument perfectly.
It was the ideal conclusion. You had the logic winning the intellect, the Lord's personal example winning the heart, and the chanting delivering the spiritual benefit to everyone. The Varanasi Victory really was like the whole mission in miniature.
Yeah, it feels like those three things together were just irresistible.
Philosophical logic, personal conduct, and the sheer power of the holy name working together.
So thinking about all this, what's the takeaway for you listening to this today? We've seen this really clear contrast, haven't we? The Māyāvādī goal, liberation, merging, dissolving the self into oneness.
The ends of individuality, basically.
Right. But the Vaishnava goal, shown so powerfully here, is prima, active, pure love of God. And this is presented as actually superior even to that liberation.
That's the key point. An eternal relationship is valued more highly than simply ceasing to exist individually.
So that leaves us with a final thought, maybe something for you to consider. If the ultimate goal isn't just to be absorbed, to disappear into the absolute, but instead it's an eternal, active, loving relationship, what does that suggest about your own spiritual identity? What is its fundamental nature? What's its purpose?
It implies that identity itself must be inherently active, inherently relational, and eternal too. Consciousness, maybe, finds its highest expression not when it dissolves, but when it connects. Dynamically. Eternally.